So for this video, I wanted to go over some advanced static routing. This is covered in Module 15 of the Switching Routing Wireless Essentials course. It's Course 2. So even networks that have dynamic routing implemented typically have some static routing configured. Static routing can be standard static routing, such as your next hop and your exit interface routing. Default static route, it's actually quite common to have that, especially if it's a network that has internet connectivity, which most do nowadays. Floating static route, that is basically a way to have a backup route in your routing table in case one route goes down, another is able to activate and kind of take its place. Floating static route, it uses the administrative distance to have a second route in the route table. I'll show you how that works. And a summary static route, which I'll go over as well. Well, let's start with the standard static routes. These, as I said, these can be next hop route, which is where you specify the IP address of the interface on the next router, or the next hop router. Directly connected static route, that's where you specify the exit interface on the router. It's very useful in point-to-point networks, more efficient. And we have a fully specified static route where you specify the exit interface and the next hop IP address. And this figure shows a dual stack topology. I think we can pull Packet Tracer up for this. It's the same basic topology as what they have in the book. So if we take a look at the routing table for R1, you'll see that the router only sees the two networks that are connected. That's the only thing that's in the routing table. If you read through Module 14, you know that each of these route codes specifies a different type of route. The C specifies a network which is directly connected. And we have two of those, 172.16.3.0/24 and 172.16.2.0/24. And the L specifies interfaces on the router that are configured with these IP addresses, called local routes. And we can look at the IPv6 routing table as well. And again, it only shows the networks that are directly connected. That's because routers, they do not know to route anything outside of their directly connected network. Unless you tell a router using dynamic routing, static routing, default routing, unless you tell a router where to send a packet, it's not going to know where to send it unless it's directly connected already. But routing is the process of telling a router where to send those packets to. And if we try to ping this network up here, 172.16.1.1, you'll use the exit interface on this router. And you'll see it does not like that at all. If we try to ping the exit interface, this here on that router goes through just fine. So let's route to that network. Show you how to use the next hop route. IP route destination network, which is 172.16.1.0/24. And we're sending it to the exit interface, the next hop route. Just 172.16.2.2. And now if we try to ping that again, now it's working just fine. So that's the next hop static route. IPv6, it would be the same way. We use the next route. Oh. Okay, so we won't use the link local address then. We'll use the GUA. Okay, so let's look at the directly connected static route. And we'll route to this network next. So it's IP route, destination network. And this time, instead of specifying the next hop, we're just going to specify the exit interface. The exit interface is 010. Okay. And now if we ping this network, it should work. Let's .1. Yep, and that worked fine. So I was able to ping this interface. And the fully specified static route, unfortunately, does not really work well in Packet Tracer, but I'll show you the command for using that. If we were routing to this network here, the IP route destination, so serial 0/1/0, and the next hop IP address of 172.16.2.2. And it's going to fail, but that is the command. It works. It works on the real router that I have here in the class set up for it. So one of the most common routes that you'll see on any network that has connectivity to the internet is a static default static route. And the default static route, I'll show you the IPv4 and the IPv6. For IPv4, IP route 0.0.0.0, 0.0.0.0, and we're going to use the next hop, which is 172.16.2.2. It helps if you're in global configuration mode, just FYI. Okay, and basically what we just told the router to do is any IPv4 address that doesn't match the routing table, send it to this next hop, and that router will deal with it. And IPv6, it's ::/0. It'll be to the next hop. IPv6 route ::/0. Basically, any IPv6 address that doesn't match the routing table, send it to this interface. So before I get to the floating static route, let me go over the summary route, because this is easier to show you how it works than to explain it. Summary route is kind of like a it's a way to it's a more efficient way to route multiple networks. Look at these networks. If I was on R3 right now and I wanted to put route entries in for 172.16.1.0, .2.0, and .3.0, I could do each of those individually, right? Well, I could do that, but I wouldn't have to, because aren't all these networks within one other network? I mean, isn't if I took out a couple of network bits out of the block, isn't this just a 172.16.1.0/22? A /22 would be 172.16.1 172.16.0.0/22 would encompass all three of these networks, right? So I could just do IP route 172.16.0.0 255.255.252.0 to the next hop interface. So 192.168. Whatever that is, actually, I don't. Oh, wait. I'm not sure what that IP address is on that. Hold on, let's look that up. Serial 011 192.168.1.1. So it is this. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Sorry about that. That's a summary route. That's basically, I'm saying all three of these, networks would be covered by this route. I could get even more lazy. Get even more lazy and just do this. That would cover everything that starts with 172. Say Everything if it starts with 172, send it to this interface and this router will deal with it. That's a summary route. Oh, it's .2 up there. Hold on. There. Tried to point it to this interface. So pointed to this interface. This is 0.2. So now I'm saying anything that starts with 172, send it to this interface right here or this router. That's a summary route. So the last one I want to talk about is the floating static route. And I kind of explained this briefly. But in the configuration, you can set up multiple routes. Like in this example, they're actually showing IP route, a default IP route going to 172.16.2.2, and another default route going to 10.10.10.2 with an administrative value of 5. Now what this effectively does is, as long as this route is active and is in the routing table, in other words, as long as this route is available, default traffic will go to this IP address. If this route were to become unavailable, however, this secondary route would become active and all default traffic would go to this IP address. So a floating static route is basically a backup. And it can be used on a default route. It doesn't have to be used on a default route. It can be used on any route. But you basically are setting up a backup in place. And this tells you how to test it out. In a packet tracer assignment, you would assign a default a static route, a floating static route, and you cut the connection on the primary, and the secondary would become active. Right, and that is all there is to 15, because the next part goes into module 16. So if you have any questions, leave them in the comments or send me an email, and have a great day.